Hi, I'm Nate.
I'm Noah.
No, I'd actually say this chat leans in the direction of Gaming Lion because we are talking to the founder of Fyre Games, Connor Rush, on this one about his new game, Summerland.
It's a really beautiful game. We played through the entirety of it right before recording the episode, and we had a lot of fun talking about it.
I actually found Connor on TikTok, which is crazy. He was talking about making Summerland, and I, as I do, was like, hey, do you need any sound effects for this game? So I actually designed the footsteps in the game and 2 gunshot sounds that you'll hear at very important parts in the game.
For what it's worth, they're good footsteps.
Thanks, bud.
In this podcast, we talk about video games and death, which is really everything you could ever want in a podcast.
That's some serious range right there. But also, before we start, consider this your spoiler warning. We'll be talking about the story of this game. So if you're curious about it, it's available now on Steam. It's called Summerland. Give it a download, give it a playthrough.
We'll be here when you get back.
We hope you enjoy the game, the footsteps, and this episode. So,
without further ado,
this is Talking Lion.
well, hey.
Hi.
It's nice to see you and meet you. We just played through Summerland and it's awesome. Like we were talking about it a little bit before recording, but yeah, dude, like congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Game. You made a lovely little game,
You made
sir.
a lovely little
Thank
game.
you.
You made a game that got Noah and I like very much talking about philosophy and also just like game design and all that. So we appreciate the conversation starter.
You don't know how much that actually means to me. That's incredible. Like, thank you so much.
I was like texting you about it. We were big fans of like the walking narrative genre of games, like Gone Home and Firewatch. We were talking about the Beginner's Guide is like one of my all-time favorite games.
I love it.
So like I really feel like this Summerland fits really comfortably in this world of and genre of games, and we're almost jealous of how well you executed it. You know,
there's no need for that. I listened through like all of your discography, and I thought it was all awesome. By the way, so no jealousy needed.
I appreciate that. You know, we joke around that we're like air merchants. Like no matter how much we work, it will always still be vibrations.
I'm just
in
selling
the air.
air.
You know, it's nice. It's really cool to like play a game. You know, and
Yeah.
it reminds me a little bit of college, like 'cause some of our friends would make stuff, and
Yeah.
we were always. No, you made a game, right? Where you had to fight whales.
Yeah, when I was learning Unity at freshman year in college, the most robust game experience I ever I was able to complete a core gameplay loop, which was this game where you're in an open field and whales are flying from the sky towards you. And if you click the mouse, it'll shoot out this really high quality chair model. And if the chairs hit the whales, they would fall out of the sky. So it was like kind of a basic like arcade game where you're just it's like a bullet hell kind of game where you're just trying to like kill the whales as they fly through the air towards you. But they made this horrific low pitched noise, which was just like it was like
Wait, there was a flashlight mechanic though, because it was in the dark.
It was in the dark.
And you had a flashlight that
So it was
ran
like-
out of battery.
it was like
so you had to run
Slender Man.
around the field.
Yeah, I had big plans to like implement phases and maybe like a safe house. But
I
like,
had no idea that you did games as well.
yeah, that was
I mean, that's a very generous way of putting it.
yeah, it's a very
Connor.
generous
Yeah.
way of putting it. Like I think both of us have dabbled in games, but yeah, I got into Unity freshman year of college during the blizzard of 2014.
Oh my goodness.
It's always something that I've been, and when I was, but before I wanted to become a musician, I went to a cyber camp 2 years in a row for Half-Life modding, where I like literally did a course in like building levels and like narrative stuff in Source Engine. So like
That's
video games
cool.
have always been like a huge part of my life. And I mean, most of the content I watch on YouTube is like video game journalism and video game theory content. So it's something that I spend a lot of time, thinking about and engaging with.
I studied video game narrative at Berkeley, which was like how video games in their medium discusses narrative, which is where I fell in love with the sort of walking narrative genre.
Yeah.
The only game I think I've ever actually coded correctly was called The Myth of Sisyphus, and it is an orb that you roll up a hill that the speed of the orb gets slower and slower, and then eventually it rolls back down the hill. I was very proud of it.
It sounds like we might be the same 3 people. Wow, music and game nerds that like making things and talk in microphones a lot.
I mean, there we go.
There we go. That's it. That's the ball game.
And you're a musician too, man. Like the music in Summerland is great. I know you're releasing that music very, very soon.
Yeah, there's a few singles out right now, actually.
I'm excited for like people to experience this. And again, like we have played so many walking narrative games that just don't grip you in the way that this gripped you. Like halfway through, we were like, okay, we might have to just postpone this interview so that we can just finish it,
just finish the game.
and know what happens, to Matt.
That's the goal, really. Walking simulators are hard to pull off.
Yeah,
they're really difficult.
I appreciate the sort of pacing of the game too. I love a game that starts with sound design. You know it, like very on brand for me to say.
Yeah.
But the fact that the first thing you really see is just remain calm, very like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That was the exact reason I put that in there. I love Hitchhiker's Guide.
Is that you in the monologue as well on the phone?
No. How much do you guys use TikTok?
I had a kick, like right when quarantine started. Actually, like, for everybody listening, like that's how I found you you were just on my For You page. And I'm like, I have not found another video game developer on my For You page before. I'm going to say hello.
Yeah.
And also see if I can help with, footsteps.
Which you did. And the footsteps were awesome.
Which I appreciated. While we were playing, I turned to Noah. I'm like, do those sound familiar? But that's my handiwork.
But yeah, the monologue guy on the phone, that's Ryan Beard. I don't know if you know his account.
I don't, but now I'll check it out.
He does a lot of comedy stuff. He was on America's Got Talent at one point.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, I as a kid I spent a lot of time like on the lot there. My step grandmother was a studio teacher.
Oh, that's
for
cool.
America's Got Talent. So I wonder if I ran into him. I'll check out his face later.
Yeah.
Noah hates this expression, but I'm better with faces than names.
Yeah, because that's how our brains work. That's how humans are literally built. No one is the other way around.
No, he's a comedy musician though.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he has a series. He has a series called Unmotivational Monday, and I don't know if you've ever seen that. That's like his big one, I think.
Oh yeah, well, everybody listening, check it out.
Yeah,
we'll
definitely
be sure to check it out. He does a great job. He sounded like you for a second though, so I wasn't sure.
I was going to do it. That was like the initial plan, and then he reached out and said he wanted to be part of the game, and I was like, okay. And
that's great.
I recast it. Yeah.
Do you voice anybody in the game?
I do not. This is actually the first time I've made a game where I don't voice anyone.
That's awesome. You're the Easter egg. You're one of Matthew's pants, like deep breaths.
You should voice actually really funny. The baby should just say one thing.
Yeah, you should like final scene. Joey says, "Dad," and that's you.
I can't do it in a baby voice though.
Yeah, it has to be full.
It has to be like the baby crying, and then like there's a silence, and you're like, "Dad."
Yeah, no, exactly.
Father.
Wait, there's New Game Plus where where you voice every character.
I had the idea of, and I definitely wouldn't follow through with this because that would be twice the work on Matthew's voice actor. But it was the idea that if you play a second playthrough, it doesn't explicitly tell you, but he's just really angry the second time.
Oh wow,
ooh, that's a great.
I think that'd be really funny.
Tight. Yeah,
that's conceptually fascinating. I love the idea of like the loop or like the re-experiencing. We'll talk about death later.
Okay,
but
let's let people like ease their way into this episode before we bring them down.
I am curious, how much of an influence did like Firewatch and like Gone Home and Beginner's Guide have on the game?
A ton. The main structure of it was inspired by a game called Virginia.
Ooh,
I don't know if you've ever played that one. I don't know if you've ever played that one. It is the closest a game has ever come to replicating film.
Wow.
For one, it has like the cinematic letterbox bars that you see in a lot of film. And I utilized that in Summerland. But also it uses editing, which is super interesting. Like you'll be walking down a hallway and then it just hard cuts to a different part of the game. And you're still walking and moving.
That's almost like Resident Evil, like old school video game used to like cut to different angles, like before you had camera.
Right. But like this is like a first person game doing this though. And you like go to a completely different area.
Whoa.
With like music like crescendoing and everything. It's exactly like film editing, and I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, that
and
is
I
really
structured it a lot like that. Another big influence was What Remains of Edith Finch and The Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
Oh yeah. I was gonna ask about that. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
Oh yeah, Vanishing of Ethan Carter for sure.
I have a very distinct memory in college of you and I locking ourselves in like the rec room.
Downstairs in 270.
Yeah, and just like playing it,
plowing through Ethan Carter in one sitting. That's
where
the
detective thing mostly came from. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Then Firewatch obviously was a big one for me.
I loved Firewatch. Amazing. That game was like...
It's a beautiful game.
Really beautiful game. What I liked about Firewatch, which Noah made a comment on pretty early, like literally trial 1 of your game. For people listening, Summerland is divided into trials. Like the level structure is like, I believe, 8 trials with interludes of these philosophy questions. A la moral philosophy, In the Good Place, etc. But yeah, trial 1... Noah made a comment about how like the game doesn't hold your hand. Like you do have to be a detective, and you do have to like, put the pieces together and really look around the map, which reminded me of Firewatch. Like there were times where you just wander around Firewatch because all you have is your map. You're like, oh, have I been here before? Like getting lost in that game was part of was I think a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I love Firewatch in that regard. Honestly, I wanted to make Summerland a bit more linear. And personally, might be an unpopular opinion, but I actually really like linear games.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of people are huge on open world, make things more expansive, make things bigger. I feel like putting things in a more linear space makes way for being able to control the pacing a bit more and being able to focus a bit more.
It allows you to tell a narrative. Like even if you take like the one of the pinnacles of open world gaming, like something like Breath of the Wild, like that's pure mechanics, like creating an emergent sense of gameplay, but it's not much in the way of telling a story. Like, if you're gonna, that's the paradox of the Rockstar game is that they have this amazing open world sandbox, but then when it comes down to tell a story, they put you on railroads because that's the only way they can do it.
Well, that's the thing is like take a game like Red Dead Redemption. You know, it's like what was it, the ludonarrative dissonance, which is. You can have a character who is trying to tell a story of a moral character or a character trying to find its morality, but because you have the agency of an open world, you could just shoot up an entire town of innocent people.
Right, exactly. I tried to combine it. I really tried to combine the two, in a bit.
And I think you did a really good job.
Because each of the trials are like kind of open, but in a very small confined space.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of going about it.
I stand by one of my favorite games is BioShock.
Oh, I love BioShock.
The first one, because you're really, it's a subjective experience of a game, So 110% with you on that one. I am curious, was there anything that was sort of inspired by limitation? Like, was there anything, like any sort of level in the game or experience within the game that came less of like, oh, this was my plan from the jump, and more of like, oh, I only have this toolkit, or I'm just one person. How do I execute this? Well, or like, how do I cheat this problem?
One of my main things was, and you'll probably be able to guess this just from playing it, but the way the characters are portrayed.
The sort of spirit, the spirit fragments.
Yeah. So all of the people in the game are sort of portrayed as these particles of light almost. And it's very, very clearly inspired by Everybody's Gone to the Rapture.
I was going to ask you if that was where that came
I feel like I'm one of the few people that really enjoyed that game, but that was really inspired by that. And the reason I did that is because I don't have the skill set to model people. But I also thought it was much more interesting than having modeled people.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like, I feel like the voice acting in this game is so, so strong. And if that was tied into beginner developer, facial animations, I feel like that would have almost like undermined how capital P professional and high quality the voice acting was.
Oh, the cast I got was incredible. I absolutely love the cast.
Shout them out. I want to know everybody who worked on this game. Like my next question was what's the team? Like we saw some of the like in the extras, the artists, like both in-game artists for like some of the paintings and pictures, but also for the concept design. And we were absolutely floored by it.
Yeah, so for one, the voice cast, I did an open casting call, which is probably the TikTok you guys saw, I assume.
I think that was probably
because that was like the
yeah.
one big one that blew up. But I did the open casting call. I got over 4,000 auditions, and those were the 4 I picked. So the main character is voiced by Rhys David, who's actually British in real life. And he's never done a game before, at least to my knowledge. He's primarily in audiobooks in that field. But I heard his performance, and part of the audition was the song. He had to pick a song and sing, and I loved it, and that was like my immediate pick. As soon as he auditioned, I knew.
Well, he sells the kind of gruffness. Again, sort of reminiscent of Joel, especially when Joel plays the guitar.
Right, yeah.
I love the tone of him, because it's at no point does it get too hard boiled. Like that was the thing. Like you have a cop as a main character, so I'm like, okay, when is this gonna get hard boiled?
That was part of the character description. I specifically said I want him to sound like, I think I used the term like a cop that's too old for this. But without the bitterness.
Yeah, and there was a lot of heart, like, I mean, and the son dynamic too. Like it was like a gruffer Marlin, like a gruffer Finding Nemo Marlin.
Yeah, I didn't want him to be the stereotype. I didn't want him to be like some stereotypical, I'm getting too old for this kind of, detective. I wanted him to, like enjoy what he does. He's a nice guy. He's got heart, and he's not afraid to show that.
Well, and I think that like his sort of, and I'm not going to spoil the game, but sort of where his arc leads is believable and is natural, and we've kind of seen it historically, so it's I think the fact that like we believe the morality of it, and we believe why he does some of the things that he does. Though Noah and I made up a little jingle while we were playing some of the levels that we do have to share with you, because throughout the game we started doing it, and then every time we solved a puzzle or like found stuff, we started doing it. So just like you go, we're committing cop crimes, cop crimes. Anyway,
I love that.
That's our cop crimes jingle.
Send me a recording of it, and that'll be in the extras menu.
No, we will.
Yeah, cop crimes by Sleeping Lion.
How vague do you think all this is going to sound to people who haven't played the game?
Well, I mean, I encourage anybody listening. We're now 20 minutes into the interview.
Yeah.
I recommend anybody listening play the game first.
Yeah. So I'm very adamant that this game is best experienced with no information about it.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
I was really like impressed by how many oh shit moments there were, like where because it's very rare you get to play a game that you don't know anything about.
Right.
Like there, and I would be like, oh crap, like, oh whoa, that just happened, like that, That.
I even wanted to make the story in a way that if you didn't read a single description about the game, you wouldn't understand until maybe like over halfway through what was actually going on.
I do have one very specific question about the first level, though.
Okay.
When he first starts having heart problems, is that tied into the first time you try to run?
It is not.
Okay. And that was a hilariously well-timed event.
Yeah. When we were playing, it was the first time I sprinted.
I don't know if it's even heart problems. I kind of just made it this fictional ailment he has.
Right.
So Noah and I like switched off playing, and Noah had been walking around. He's like, oh right, I can run. And he hits shift to run. And like a second after he hits shift, he starts like panting and going, oh no, not again. And we're like, are you not supposed to run?
No, that's totally coincidental.
It's called like serendipitous sync, was in music when like a cue accidentally hits a moment, whether or not you meant for it to happen.
Right.
But, like,
right.
It's definitely a hilarious sort of coincidence.
That is really funny.
Yeah, I appreciate your work on it, and I'm always very curious about those sort of limitations and how you went around it. And an A+ to the team. Wait, what were the artist names? Like the ones?
Yeah. So the concept artist, it was concept / inspired because a lot of it was done like post game. His name is Zach Morphew. He's done a ton for me in the past. He's an incredible artist. He goes by Surreal Station on Instagram, and I highly recommend anyone go check him out and give him a follow.
Yeah.
He's also done all of my, except for like the soundtrack stuff, but he's done all of my album covers in single covers.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, just seeing the concept art was really, really cool, especially the final level. Like, I think I texted you, like, the level design in this is really, really great. I stand by, like, one of the coolest moments, and it's in the first, 30 seconds, is you're in this very gray, kind of drab, like office space almost. And you're in this hallway that is a bit morbid, even just in its sort of like sterileness. And then you open the door, and it's this sprawling, lush forest.
Yeah.
And just
that's a great moment.
Those moments are just really, really cool.
I was going for that. I'm really glad you liked that.
Oh, absolutely. Like that was the first moment where I was like,
yeah, it really sets the tone for like, this is what this is going to be.
I knew when I was making the game that I wanted the first area to be something really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to grab attention with it. So I spent a solid like 4 months making that forest area.
Yeah. No, it shows.
Well, I don't know whether this was intentional or not, but even that first crime scene that you study is kind of like a metaphor. Like it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. Like everybody died.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Yeah, I wanted to immediately open up with a bit of a moral. I don't know if I want to say moral dilemma, because there's nothing really to debate over at the moment. But kind of just that feeling of maybe the right and wrong isn't exactly black and white here.
Yeah.
And that goes with Evelyn's like discussion at the end of that level.
Yeah.
When we and I'm sort of jumping around a little bit, but the sort of final question, which I won't spoil head on, but we actually really did take a moment with that final question. We're like, because a lot of, I feel similar to Breaking Bad, like a lot of the trouble in this game is based in healthcare. Based in healthcare and
economics,
and economics, and so almost one sort of like, it's the sort of specter in the game. I don't think it's like mentioned head on in any of the philosophy problems, but it was like, okay, if your dilemmas are not your fault but the fault of a system, what's your moral responsibility to that system?
Yeah.
And in the way that you characterize Charlie, who like is this gangster essentially, and then there's that letter on the table where it's like, oh, he's also having trouble.
Yeah.
That was a really small detail, and I'm glad you guys found that.
I think it makes the moment, and now we're just spoiling stuff, but it makes the moment where you do have to clean things up with Charlie. It makes that a lot more sort of like, again, morally ambiguous.
Definitely put a mild spoiler warning at the beginning of the episode. Yeah, there are a lot of moments in the game, and I wanted to make a lot of moments that were really small that changed the meaning of a lot of things. And that Charlie moment is one of them.
You provide these sort of moments of context that, like, I think frame things in a really kind of interesting way, like little snippets of dialogue that like pack a heavy punch, or details. Yeah.
There's even like, I guess, and I don't know if you guys caught it or not. There's a kind of twist ending. It's really subtle, and I didn't want a ton of people to catch on to it.
Throw it our way. We'll see if we caught it.
It's I'm trying to think. You know what? Okay, a bit of a spoiler here. So anyone,
a bit of a spoiler. Spoiler
this whole thing's
a
bit of a spoiler, but I think it's before the 8th trial on the phone. The guy on the phone just drops like one line where he's like, "Do you even think this is real?"
Right.
And then confirms that in the next one. He's like, "I think it's as real as you want it to be." And those two lines, for me at least, completely recontextualize the game.
Yeah, I mean, I like this idea that like what he is struggling with in that in his final moment is, did he do the right things? I like throughout media, throughout history, throughout existence, that's something that we all have to kind of grapple with, and that's why that's I really appreciate that, because even if it's framed as, okay, is any of this real, or is this sort of like like a dream sequence kind of thing, or the life flashing before your eyes, it shows what's most important, at the front of your mind,
The question I have is like, what's the process for kind of like writing something like this? Did you start with a fully fleshed out script of what you wanted the sort of beats of it to be, like what the trials were? Or did it start like more artistically with the visuals, or how did the thing come together broadly?
So I, not to be a bummer or anything, but I get really like bad anxiety about stuff, right? And one of the things I have a ton of anxiety about is this like existential fear of death.
Right.
Oh, we got a segue into the end. Look at that.
Hey, we got it. We got it.
It's it freaks me out. And it's not even the fact that, death is scary. It's that there's so many unknowns. Like, what happens when we die? What's it like to die? And it's also the inevitability of it, because you're going to have to experience this at some point.
Yeah.
And I freaked out a ton about this. And I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to make something to kind of portray this. So I decided I'm going to make a game about death, and it's going to kind of compartmentalize that fear into a fictional space. So I can kind of work around it, make my own reality of it. Mm-hmm. And that's where the whole main premise came. And then I was also watching The Good Place at the time.
I was going to ask about the trolley problem and the button problem.
Yeah, I was watching a ton of The Good Place. I watched the first 3 seasons that were out at the time.
Whole bunch of Cheaty in this game.
Yeah, no, a lot of the moral stuff came from just Cheaty's talks with Eleanor from The Good Place. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I did a little more research and implemented that moral philosophy aspect into the game.
Did the process of that make you feel better about death?
It did. I think it made it more comfortable. Not that I'm like, oh, this is what happens now. No, but it's more of I've dealt with death directly in this way so much that I'm kind of used to it by now. I've been researching it so much, and I've been programming and writing with it so much that I'm like, okay, I'm more comfortable with the idea now.
I'm curious about story beats. Did you write this like you were writing a movie, or how did you kind of craft this narrative, pen to paper?
It was written like a movie. I actually have the screenplay typed out on my laptop. Great. And it's actually fairly short for a screenplay. It's 60 pages, I think.
And that's an hour long movie,
But developers don't do this. I have a very bad development process. I was modeling, designing, and programming the game as I was writing it.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of the things came in to the story because I couldn't figure out how to do other things.
Right.
There was one sequence I had initially wanted to do that was a bank heist.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I don't have the resources to make a whole bank and all of this stuff. So that became the bar.
The bar?
Yeah, that became the bar because
right.
it was a more contained, small area. It was also supposed to be a convenience store at one point, and I decided against that one. There were a lot of things that got scrapped in the story. The kid was actually supposed to be a bit older in the first draft, and he was the one that was sick.
Oh.
My friend actually just brought up one day, was like, what if the main character was sick?
I feel like that adds to the moral problem because it's about he has to stay alive for the kid,
right?
Mm-hmm.
But also how much of that is a selfish desire to be a father, or to be because he could be taken care of. There was a mother. I don't know if they implied that she died or that she just left. That was ambiguous, which I appreciated.
I try to leave a lot of the game ambiguous. I want a lot of it to be up into interpretation.
Oh, this father wants to be able to provide for his kid and be around, but would the kid be better off in a different situation?
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
So that was on my mind while playing the game for sure. Fatherhood's a very weird sort of moral ground in and of itself. I think historically.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys have so many thoughts on the game. I didn't expect that you would be thinking so much into this, and I'm really glad that you did, and I hope other people play it the same way.
Of course. Well, I think that's a testament to the game. I think that it's not a game that lets you kind of passively experience it. Even just some of the more task-based, okay, you're in a game, interact with this, do this, gives you time to kind of parse over what it is, what is it that you're doing. You go from being a cop that's finding evidence to a cop that's cleaning up and hiding evidence.
Yeah, and I wanted there to be a parallel with that gameplay as well. Because it kind of teaches you in the beginning that, oh, you're investigating this scene. And then that exact same gameplay method is used for the later crime scenes.
Except now in this morally ambiguous place, which I really, really appreciated. Yeah, no, really impressive. My last kind of question before we dive into death is where did you learn how to do this? We both have written scripts. We have both, dabbled in Unity and middleware, which obviously because of sound design and music, but this is well made. There wasn't there wasn't like a bug, you know, other than like the one I told you about in the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
like this is a clean game, and obviously also your process is well structured. Like you had your concept artists and you had your voice actors, and you did you learn this anywhere, or did you just Occam's razor the thing together?
Honestly, it's pretty much just the second one. I like doing a lot of things, the music for one, then the games, and I just kind of figured it out as I went for the most part. There's a lot of just winging it, and I think I came up with the process along the way. And like I said with the concept art, most of it was done like after the game. That's why it says like concept and inspired art.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to like fill them both together because they fit like that same visual style, but it's not exactly concept art. I just liked doing it, and I was passionate about it. So I taught myself how to code, how to design. I taught myself how to play all these instruments so that I can make music. And I'm doing it with very MacGyvered setups and softwares.
Right.
Like all my music is mixed and aligned in a movie editing software.
Whoa.
I record in Audacity.
Oh, right. I was gonna say for the audio files, I was gonna make you say it on the record. You make your music in Audacity.
That's crazy.
The Audacity.
The Audacity.
I record and I add some effects and such in Audacity, and then I export that to this like film editing software because I did video editing for a while. And I just align it and adjust volumes, and I export the wave. That's my music process.
That's crazy. When you told me that, I was like,
that is truly a MacGyver situation.
I was like, why? Like, are you making it harder on yourself or easier? I don't know.
A lot of my synths and keyboards come from apps I got on my phone.
Ooh, interesting.
You just record directly through.
My favorite bit of information about my recording is have you ever played the game Rocksmith?
Yeah, like a while ago.
Yeah.
I had Rocksmith, I think it was 2014, and the cable it used to plug into my PS3 is what I used to record all my guitars.
Oh my god!
Actually, I have a very similar story. When I learned to drum by playing Rock Band drums, and once I got more serious about it, I bought an electronic drum kit that doubled as a game controller, and the cables that were used to connect
from
the cymbals to the hardware brain that connected to the PlayStation are 1/4-inch cables.
That's funny.
So I still have those.
We use them in our live show.
I use them daily, and we use them in our live show. Like they're from an electronic Rock Band drum kit.
That's really funny.
They're just regular 1/4-inch cables, but they say like ride, snare, like kick on.
We might be the same person.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
No, I honestly, like when I first started talking with you, like I was like, you and Noah would get along extremely well.
Except I don't make music in Audacity because I'm not a sociopath.
I'm gonna say
Logic Pro were free, I'd have it.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm gonna say you're going straight to the bad place for using Audacity.
No, but on the other token, I think it's a testament to like your willpower and creativity as like an artist that you're not limited by what are on the surface very limited tools. You're just like, I'm just gonna do my thing, and it works for me, and I've got a system. Like I think that's all any of us are ever really doing.
But people don't realize about us that like we are this wonderful blend of like anxious ambition and path of least resistance.
Right.
So it's like Noah's good at this one thing. I'm good at this other thing. I will not do anything that provides any kind of challenge to me.
Right.
I hate it when people ask me, and I'm not saying don't ask me, but I hate it when people ask me, how do I get into like music, or how do I get into game development? Like, what do you do?
Right.
And I like to use that quote from, I think it was Spider-Man Homecoming, where Iron Man says like, don't do anything I would do, and don't do anything I wouldn't do. There's a fine gray line. That's where you lay.
Well, I think when people ask me, I'm like, make a list. Like, I think that like when I actually started getting things done, I'm a very linear person. I think I have a hard time with music production because it's a non-linear process. I think I'd have a lot of fun structuring a game because that's a linear process. I'd have a terrible time deciding what plant to put in the corner of a room. That's my problem is like I love editing the podcast. I love like anything that's utilitarian. Lyric writing is also, I think, utilitarian, though people will argue with me on that. But like anything that has any kind of options, I completely freeze up about. Anything that's like a linear process, I'm killing it. And that's like why I love doing sound design.
I'm honestly the exact same way.
I mean, I think it's like a type of brain, you know, like different ways of approaching a problem. But yes, like sound design, like the footsteps in Summerland, for example, like each footstep's about like 2 or 3 layers, which, you know, hopefully nobody hears. They just hear the footstep.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't know that.
In my head, it's like all you need is the sole of the foot, the crunch of the dirt, the little crackle of the grass, and then you're good. Like linoleum is like heel of the foot, reverb of the space, the actual like platform of the linoleum.
That's really interesting.
Like I think about things in terms of like what's there and what isn't, and how to sort of like fill in those spaces. But at no point is that for me a creative process. Like it's all very like, okay, what is missing? Like,
right.
When you put your foot down, what do you hear?
I had no idea that much went into that. You just sent me the footsteps and they sounded really good, and I added them.
Well, that's you know, that's how you do the job. Like I have this one time I worked on a film. It was called The Intervention, and I copy and pasted the same door sound effect for every time somebody opened and closed the door. And the sound designer I was working for was like, okay, every door has a character. Like you're denying yourself the ability to like tell part of the story by like only using this one sound every time it closes. So I went through every door, layered 6 other doors on top of it, like depending on, was it an angry slam?
Right.
That's cool.
Was it like, were they trying to be quiet? Like, you know, that kind of stuff.
That's really interesting. Wow. Thank you, by the way. I didn't know so much went into those like sounds you had recorded for the game.
Oh, of course. Well, I wanted to do right by you, man. Like, I think, again, you know, I'm not like a big believer in like, you know, fate or kismet or whatever, but like I'm a believer in when you find yourself somewhere, do right by that something, you know?
Well, I
like,
really appreciate it.
Of course. Like I could tell from the jump, there was so much passion in this game. And anybody who plays it can see, you know, like there is so much detail and care. Even to the point where like I was DMing you like, you know, asking for some hints so we could finish it on time for the interview, and you knew everything about like what was going on in the game, you know, no matter where we were, because obviously you spent hours with like
you were in the weeds of coding every possible little interaction.
You really have to have the passion to make something like this when I'm like a one-man team, because like anything that was paid for was out of my own pocket.
Which, you know, that's huge, and we feel it on our side. But even just what people don't realize on the one-man team is like you also have to be your own like,
it was dedication.
Motivator.
It was dedication.
Yeah.
Like I think what gets me out of bed when I don't want to is like knowing that like Noah needs me to be like, oh, do this, and I need Noah to be like, okay, do this.
Yeah.
Like when you're working with somebody, you hold somebody accountable, but you know you're just waking up and doing it.
It's just something I really like doing. It's a hobby that I hope to turn into a career. Are
you already working on the next thing? Or are you like, okay, we got to get Summerland out the door first, get the updates done?
Oh, you know, even making Summerland, I was working on more music type stuff. No game plans at the moment. I mean, I have some old game demo type stuff that I've never released and no one's really ever seen. That's nowhere near a state where I even know if I'm going to continue with them. But I do have some music planned. I'm hoping to make a new album soon-ish. I have 5 demos recorded right now.
I think you sent me some stuff.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have an album out maybe in a year or 2. But yeah, music's probably my next big thing.
Well, we know a thing or two about that. So if you do need any help and also want to transition out of Audacity, we are... We're here for it. Actually, you know what? We'll even help if it's in Audacity, you know?
Oh, well, that means a lot. Thank you.
Because nobody has to do it alone. I respect the decision, but I feel like actually one of the big sort of transitions for Noah and I were both realizing, oh, we can actually rely on each other.
Yeah.
You know, and not have to be so lonely in it.
This is the first time like I'm recording music, and my first album I did like 100% alone almost. This one I'm actually bringing on like collaborators. I have a drummer for the first time ever.
Hey,
phenomenal drummer. His name is Jonah Henthorn. Amazing jazz drummer. It's basically me doing everything, and then I say, "Hey, here's the track," and then he writes and records this like amazing drum track for it that overshadows everything I did for the song.
That's awesome.
That's great.
I mean, that's what a drummer should do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Also, before we go into death, I do want to say, and this is totally like off topic, but I just thought of it.
We don't go quietly into that dark night, you know?
I have a friend, his name is Kyle, and he does a podcast called The Real Dudes Podcast. Like the first group of people that ever reviewed one of my games. So
nice.
I sent him an early copy of Summerland, and we did an interview and everything before he played it a few months back. And he said when he played it, the first thing he complimented, and I'm not even kidding, I'm not making this up, were the footsteps.
Hey!
That's great.
One of his main criticisms of my last game was that the footstep sounds were too monotone and like the same sound no matter what. And the first thing he said he really liked is like, I love the footstep sounds in this game.
That's great.
I mean, that means the world. It is crazy.
And I thought you'd enjoy that.
I mean, that honestly means the world. This is really the second game I've ever like done sound for. I mostly do film stuff, but like there's a lot of obvious footstep work in film, and I think people don't realize like how obvious it is when no thought is put into that versus like 5% of thought or 10% or 50, or you know, like when you're playing a game and you hear the same sound effect, footstep sound effect twice, that does something to your brain.
Yeah.
You know, that you know, it's like when you hear like a wrong note on a pop song, you're like, okay, it doesn't ruin the whole song for me, but I definitely know they didn't.
It stands out.
It stands out, you know? So hey, to shout out Kyle and thanks for being a real dude. and I'm here if you ever want to do more footsteps, bud, you know. But we have come to our final destination.
The final destination.
Turn off the lights, light all the candles.
We're talking about death, baby. Is this what you think happens when you die?
Oh, by no means. not to cut off your question early, but no.
What do you think happens when you die?
I don't know. I have no idea.
That's a great answer.
That's pretty much why I made the game. Is again that whole anxiety because I don't know.
Dude, I saw this clip the other day on the internet of Keanu Reeves on Colbert, and Colbert says, "Keanu Reeves, what happens after we die?" And Keanu Reeves takes a beat, and he says, "I know that the people who love us will miss us." And then the crowd goes, "Aw." And then Stephen Colbert just like chokes up a little bit. And it's like a really sweet little clip.
That's like a really lovely answer.
Yeah,
and
no, that's actually
like,
well articulated, especially live.
The best way to ever dodge the question, but like it is the perfect answer to the question.
And also like just on Colbert too, of all interviews, like Colbert has the most tragic origin story.
Very, yeah.
Okay, better question is what do you want to have happen? Like if you could craft your afterlife, what would that look like?
I mean, my one theory, and I don't know how much backs this up, right? I haven't researched much of it, but I just think possibly not when you die, but right before you die, your brain just goes haywire and time feels slow and you really just imagine what you want. And I think that could be it. It's like that 5 seconds before is like these 80 years almost of just whatever you want it to be.
Well, you and I are on a very similar page because I actually agree. That's what I think. But I have one extra step if you'll indulge me.
All right.
We got DMT in our brains because of like dreams and stuff. Yeah. And from what I've heard of friends who have gone on DMT trips, you know, time stops existing. So you're on the money there. And but also you kind of like, somebody described like a vault of like all of their memories, but also like a lot of math. There was just a lot of math, like, and shapes and stuff. Like they described this ability to sort of communicate with like math and shapes. So what I think is that when you die, you get hit with so much DMT that time stops existing, but you also are able to figure out like the math of the universe. Like you're able to understand kind of like how the whole equation of the world is happening, so you can go back and forward in time, so to speak, and like kind of see everything that's going to happen at your leisure.
That's really interesting. Wow.
That's what brings me, I think, the most comfort is like being able to, because it doesn't matter if it's true. Like, it doesn't matter if that information is accurate. But I think like what scares me the most about death is the FOMO.
Wow.
So you get to kind of see everything that happens. You get to see everything that you didn't get a chance to see from your objective perspective, because you didn't have the math in the past. You can extrapolate frame by frame to see where all your loved ones will go and be,
I actually really like that. That's very not only interesting but comforting in a way.
Yeah, that's what it is for me. And that's why I think there's also a sort of moral imperative to, like, I think heaven and hell is really just like having to experience, like, if you surrounded yourself by shitty people, or you didn't open yourself up or find a way of loving, then you're sort of just lost, not knowing what you want to see or where you want to go, and you just kind of wander through the math. Whereas like, and I'm getting into like Interstellar, like the love dimension on this one, but I do think that, like, I don't know, it'd be cool to have some sort of agency and being able to like pull the threads of where everything goes, not like actually control the world or whatever, but just like understanding how all the chaos kind of stacked to lead you to your perfect little life.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I think I just take comfort in the idea that once what constitutes me is gone, it literally does not matter. There's simply not a me to make judgments or have opinions, or the whole system goes out the window. So how, like, what's there to fear? Fear is no longer part of the equation. Nothing is part of the equation. It is literally pure nothingness. It is the same as was before I existed. I simply was not, and I simply will not be. And like, that's great.
Lights out.
Lights out.
Curtains, baby. Just players on a stage to act again, to sleep, to dream, perchance to dream and sleep. I'm blending Hamlet.
Crimes!
Cop crimes!
I hope that's what happens when I die. I hope it's all black and the last thing I hear is cop crimes.
We're committing cop crimes.
And then existence ceases to exist.
I mean, that's actually, for some people that's heaven, and for some people that's hell. It's just Noah and I singing the cop crimes song.
But to answer your question, no, Summerland is not what I think happens when we die.
But it is interesting. I think, like, I like this idea of agency. Like, I think that the fact that there is a sort of like, it doesn't necessarily have a ton of weight, but the fact that, like, the game does ask you to make choices, whether or not it's weighed in, I think is really, really cool. Are there any final words or thoughts now that the post-mortem is well wrapped? Is there any final shout outs or things you want to say about Summerland?
Yeah, I just want to say that by the time this podcast comes out, Summerland's going to be released. It's going to be out there, and it's going to be free. So I highly encourage you to go on Steam or itch.io and download Summerland, give it a shot. And if you were to be ever so kind, I put a message, and you guys played it, so you probably saw it. But after beating the game, you get a message from me and a button that allows you to donate. A very polite message, if I may say so myself. Yeah, if you could find it in your heart to donate to the studio, that would be awesome. Again, it's a free game, so any donations really help me to keep making these games like I'm making them now. No obligation, of course. Like, if you're not able to donate, don't donate. But if you can and you're willing, I'd really appreciate it.
We absolutely vouch for it. We loved playing it. It was a really, really cool and fun experience. We were floored by some moments. There's a really beautiful amount of detail and just some really breathtaking pieces of level design. So to everybody listening, please play it. Even if you're not a video game player, you don't need to be a video game player. It's a walking narrative, so you don't have to be good at video games to be able to play it. Just dive in, enjoy the story, donate. The more that goes into a company, the more the musicians and the artists and the sound designers and everybody can be compensated. So you make the art happen, dear listener. And we hope you continue to support creators like us and like you. So, Connor, thank you so much for being on Talking Lion and for making such a fun game. It's been an adventure and a really fun journey.
Oh yeah, and thank you guys a ton for letting me come on the show, and thanks for playing the game. Like that's actually really. I'm glad you guys liked it so much. Like I'm really happy that you guys liked the game.
We would like to thank Alan C. for supporting Talking Lion on Patreon and Isotope.